My son laughed when his wife called me the babysitter. They thought I was just some old woman who cooked, cleaned, and watched their kids for free. But what they didn't know was that everything they owned, every comfort they enjoyed, came from me. And when the truth finally came out, my son didn't laugh anymore. He fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness. This is the story of how I stopped being their babysitter and started being their lesson. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more true and untold stories, where pain turns into power and truth always finds its way. My name is Linda Parker. I am 63 years old. Most people say I have a gentle face and a calm voice. Maybe that is because life has taught me to be patient, even when it hurts. Every morning, I wake up before sunrise. The house is quiet. I make a small cup of coffee, look out the window, and whisper a prayer for my family. Then I get ready to go to my son's house. My son Ethan is 30. He is successful, confident, and always busy. His wife, Vanessa, is 35, smart, stylish, and never without her phone. They have 2 children, Emily and Noah. Those 2 little ones are the joy of my life. Every weekday, I take care of them while Ethan and Vanessa go to work. I cook for them, help with homework, and tuck them in for naps. I love doing it because they remind me of the days when Ethan was small and used to call me his hero. But lately, things have changed. I don't feel like family anymore. I feel like a worker in their house. When I arrive in the morning, Vanessa often has a note waiting on the kitchen counter. It says things like, "Please vacuum the floor," or "Make sure Noah eats all his lunch today." Sometimes she adds, "Do not let them watch too much TV." I smile and do everything she asks. I tell myself it is okay, that she is just being organized. But deep down, it hurts. Once, when I was wiping the table, Vanessa came downstairs in her heels and said, "Linda, please make sure the kids don't sit on the white couch. I just had it cleaned." I said softly, "Of course, dear." She smiled politely and walked away without another word. I stood there for a moment, staring at the couch. It felt strange that in the house my husband once helped them by. I now had to ask permission for where the children could sit. After lunch, I played with Emily and Noah in the backyard. They giggled as I chased them around the grass. That sound, their laughter, was the only thing that still made me feel alive. When Ethan came home that evening, he barely looked up from his phone. He kissed the kids goodnight and told Vanessa about a new project he was working on. I waited quietly by the door, hoping he would say thank you for watching the kids or ask if I was tired, but he didn't. He just said, "Lock the door when you leave." "Mom, Vanessa and I have a call tonight." I smiled and said, "All right, honey, good night." Then I walked back home alone, my feet heavy, my heart heavier. I sat by my window and thought about how much I had given up for him. After my husband John passed away, I worked 2 jobs just to pay Ethan's college tuition. I skipped meals so he could eat. I sold my jewelry to help him start his company. Now I was just the babysitter. But I told myself to stay calm. I believed love would always be stronger than pride. At least, that is what I wanted to believe. It was a Saturday evening when Ethan called and said, "Mom, we're having a dinner party next weekend. Some of my business partners and neighbors are coming. Could you help us prepare?" My heart lit up. It had been a long time since the family hosted something special, and I was happy to help. I spent the next few days planning dishes, shopping for ingredients, and polishing the silver trays I kept from my old kitchen. On the day of the party, I arrived early with my casserole dishes and pies. Vanessa greeted me with a smile that looked more like politeness than warmth. "Linda, you're early," she said. "Good, we have a lot to do. The caterer canceled last minute, so I hope you don't mind taking over the cooking." I laughed lightly and said, "Of course, dear. I'll handle it." I spent hours in the kitchen preparing food while Vanessa arranged decorations and Ethan made phone calls. The house was full of laughter and excitement, but none of it was directed toward me. By evening, the guests arrived. Men in suits, women in dresses, everyone holding glasses of wine and talking loudly. The kids ran to hug me, and that made me smile. At dinner, I stood near the dining table, making sure everyone had enough food. A woman pointed at me and asked Ethan, "Is that your mother? She looks lovely." Before Ethan could answer, Vanessa chuckled and said loudly, "Oh no, that's our babysitter. She's amazing with the kids." Everyone laughed. Even Ethan smiled. I froze. For a second, I thought I misunderstood. But then she said again, "Really, we couldn't manage without her. She's practically here every day." The laughter grew louder. My cheeks burned. I felt something twist inside my chest. I wanted to say something, to remind them who I was, but the words wouldn't come out. I kept smiling. I didn't want to ruin their night. I just kept serving food, pretending everything was fine. After dinner, while guests laughed and took pictures, I quietly collected plates and carried them to the kitchen. My hands were trembling. I could hear Vanessa showing off the house, saying, "We built this home from scratch. Every corner reflects our hard work." I stood there washing dishes, tears slipping down my face. Later that night, when the guests left, I gathered my purse and said softly, "Good night, Ethan. Good night, Vanessa. Thank you for the evening." Vanessa barely looked up. Ethan said, "Thanks, Mom. Drive safe." I nodded and walked out. The street was empty, the air cold. I could hear my footsteps echoing as I walked home. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached home, I sat on the couch and looked at the old family photo on the wall. Ethan was just a boy in that picture, smiling in his father's arms. I whispered, "John, our boy doesn't see me anymore. Not as his mother. Not as family." That night, I cried quietly until my eyes hurt. But somewhere between my tears and my silence, a thought began to grow. I decided I wouldn't stay silent forever. They might have called me the babysitter tonight, but soon, they would find out who I really was. The next morning, I woke up feeling different. The image of that dinner party kept replaying in my mind. Vanessa's laugh, Ethan's smile. The word babysitter, echoing like a bell I couldn't turn off. I made coffee and sat by the window. The sun was rising, painting the sky with soft light. It should have been a peaceful morning, but my heart felt heavy. I thought about how many times I had been there for my son. When he was in school and got bullied, I was the one who comforted him. When his father died, I was the one who worked double shifts so he could go to college. I was there when he started his company, helping him with his first business plan, even signing the first loan papers under my name because he didn't have credit back then. Everything he had started from something I gave. Now he laughed while his wife called me a babysitter. That word didn't just hurt. It broke something inside me. Later that day, when I went to their house, I tried to act normal. I played with Emily and Noah, cooked dinner, and smiled when Vanessa gave new instructions. But my heart wasn't in it anymore. In the evening, when Ethan came home, he looked tired. I tried to talk to him. I said, "Ethan, can we have dinner together tomorrow? Just you and me." He looked confused. "Why, Mom? Is everything okay?" "Yes," I said softly. "I just want to spend some time with you. Like old times." He smiled faintly. "Sure, Mom, we'll see." But I knew he wouldn't come. When I left that evening, I stopped outside the gate and looked at their big house. The lights were bright, the cars were new, everything looked perfect. But I realized something. It wasn't built on love. It was built on pride. That night, I sat on my bed and opened an old wooden box. Inside were old papers, my husband's documents, and a file marked Parker and Sons Construction, the company Ethan ran proudly today. I opened it and looked at the signatures. Mine was still there. Next to my late husband's, half the shares still belonged to me. My heart started beating fast. For years, I had ignored this. I had let Ethan handle everything, trusting him completely. But now I realized, maybe it was time to remind him who built the foundation he stood on. A few days later, I called Mr. Bennett, our family lawyer. He had been a close friend of my husband and helped us start the construction business years ago. He answered warmly. "Linda, it's been a long time. How have you been?" I told him everything. The humiliation at the dinner party, the way Ethan and Vanessa treated me, how they had started seeing me as someone small, someone who didn't matter anymore. There was silence for a few seconds. Then he said, "Linda, I still have all the company documents in my office. Ethan may run it, but you still own the majority of the shares. You're technically the controlling owner." I was shocked. Controlling owner. But Ethan has been making all the decisions for years. "Yes," he said, "because you allowed him to. But legally, the company belongs to you and your late husband's estate. Ethan is only an appointed director." I sat there holding the phone, trying to take it in. For years, I thought I had nothing left except my small house and a few savings. But the truth was, everything Ethan was proud of, every project he bragged about, every paycheck he took home, all of it still carried my name. "Mr. Bennett," I said quietly, "I think it's time we make a few changes." He replied, "Just tell me what you want to do." That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to yell or argue. I wasn't going to curse them or fight. I was going to let the truth speak for itself. I spent hours going through old files. My husband had been a smart man. He built the business with honesty and loyalty. I wanted that legacy back, not the arrogance Ethan and Vanessa had turned it into. The next day, I went to Mr. Bennett's office. We reviewed every document. He smiled and said, "Linda, if you want to transfer ownership or freeze accounts, it can be done within a week. You just need to sign these papers." I held the pen for a moment, thinking about my son. The little boy who used to hold my hand on the way to school. The young man who cried when he failed his first college exam. Then I remembered the man who laughed when someone called his mother a babysitter. I signed the papers. When I left the office, I didn't feel revenge. I felt peace. For the first time in years, I was doing something for myself, not for others. A week later, Vanessa called and asked if I could come early to watch the kids. She said they were going on a weekend trip. I agreed, as always. When I arrived that morning, the kids hugged me tightly. Vanessa and Ethan were packing. Vanessa was on the phone, laughing and talking loudly. I was about to go to the kitchen when I overheard her talking to her friend. She said, "Honestly, I don't know how much longer we'll have to keep her around. I mean, free babysitting is great, but she's getting old. The kids are growing up anyway." Her friend laughed on the phone, and she added, "Ethan says she's harmless. She doesn't even know how to use a bank app. We can handle her easily if she ever complains." I froze. Then I heard Ethan's voice from the hallway. He said, "Come on, Vanessa. She's harmless. Let her feel useful. It's better than her sitting at home crying about dad all day." They both laughed. Something inside me snapped. I didn't say a word. I walked into the living room, smiled at them, and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything while you're gone. Have a nice trip." Vanessa smiled. "Thanks, Linda, you're a lifesaver." They left for the weekend. When the house became quiet, I sat on the couch and looked around. All the furniture, the paintings, the shining floors, everything they had came from the company my husband and I built with sweat and sacrifice. I whispered to myself, "You both forgot who built this life for you. But you'll remember soon." That evening, I called Mr. Bennett again and said, "It's time. Do whatever needs to be done." He said, "Understood. By Monday, they won't have access to any company accounts, and I'll prepare the documents for the new owner registration." I thanked him and hung up. That night, I tucked the children into bed and kissed their foreheads. I promised myself that whatever happened next, They would never suffer because of their parents' pride. I turned off the lights and sat in the quiet house. The air was still, almost too still. I looked at the photo of my husband that Ethan kept in his office. I touched it gently and said, "John, our son lost his way, but I'll bring him back, even if it breaks me to do it." The decision was final. The storm had already begun. That night I couldn't sleep. The laughter from downstairs still echoed in my ears. I had gone to bed early. But the sound of glasses, clinking and voices carrying through the walls kept me awake. My son and his wife had some of their friends over. And, as usual, I wasn't invited to sit with them. I went to the top of the stairs quietly, not intending to eavesdrop, but just to see if they needed anything. That's when I heard it. Samantha was laughing loudly. "Your mom really thinks she's part of the family," she said. Daniel laughed too. "Yeah, she helps with the kids, cooks, cleans. Honestly, she's more like our live-in babysitter." My heart felt like it stopped for a second. Babysitter. That word hit me harder than anything ever had. I had given up my retirement plans to help them raise their kids while they both worked full-time. I had cleaned their home, made their dinners, and done everything I could to make their lives easier. And now, I was just a babysitter. Their guests joined in the laughter. Someone joked, "At least you're saving money on daycare." I didn't cry that night. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. My hands were trembling, but not from sadness. It was anger. Quiet, cold anger. Something inside me broke that night. And I promised myself I wouldn't be treated like a servant anymore. The next morning, I acted normal. I made breakfast for the kids, packed their lunches, and smiled as if everything was fine. But inside, I had already made a decision. I was going to teach them what happens when someone disrespects the hand that raised them. For the next few weeks, I played the same role. The kind, helpful mother, the quiet, obedient presence in their home. I wanted them to stay comfortable, to keep thinking I was harmless. But behind that calm face, I was planning. I started by making a few calls. I spoke to an old friend from my accounting days, Mr. Henderson. He had once helped me set up a trust fund when my husband passed away. I told him I wanted to make a few changes specifically to transfer all my assets and savings into that account permanently. I also spoke to my lawyer, explaining that I wanted to update my will. Instead of leaving everything to Daniel and his family, I decided to dedicate my estate to a local children's charity and a retirement home I had volunteered at years ago. Meanwhile, I began stepping back at home. I told Samantha I wasn't feeling well some days and couldn't cook or pick up the kids. She complained constantly. "Seriously? What's the point of having you here if you can't even help?" Daniel didn't defend me. He just sighed and said, "Mom, we really depend on you. Please don't make this harder." Every word confirmed my decision. They weren't depending on me because they loved me. They depended on me because I made their lives easier. Then came the perfect opportunity. Samantha told me she was planning a big family dinner. She wanted to invite her parents and a few friends to celebrate Daniel's promotion. She asked if I could handle the kids while she and Daniel prepared. I smiled and said, "Of course, dear. I'll take care of everything." But that night, they would be the ones surprised. The evening arrived, and the house was full of guests. Laughter, music, and the smell of food filled the air. I had spent all day helping prepare, knowing this would be my final act in this house. Everyone gathered around the table, talking about Daniel's success at work. Samantha made a toast to my amazing husband, who's worked so hard to give us this beautiful home, these adorable kids, and this life we deserve. Everyone clapped. Daniel smiled proudly, looking at me. And of course, thanks to Mom for watching the kids while we chased our dreams. I smiled politely. "You're welcome, Daniel. It's been quite an experience." After dinner, Samantha turned to me in front of everyone. "You really should take a break, you know? You've been such a help with the kids." Like a real babysitter. She said it with that same mocking laugh. Not realizing her joke would cost her everything. The room laughed again. Except for one man, Mr. Henderson. He had joined the dinner at my invitation. Introduced as an old family friend. I stood up slowly. Actually, Samantha, you're right. I have been a babysitter here for far too long. That's why I've decided to stop. The room went quiet. I handed Daniel a white envelope. This is a notice. I'll be moving out tomorrow. Daniel looked shocked. Mom, what are you talking about? I mean that you two will have to start taking care of your own home and children. I've also finalized some other decisions. You see, the house you're living in, it isn't in your name anymore. Samantha blinked. What do you mean? I turned to Mr. Henderson, who nodded and opened a folder. Mrs. Lewis recently transferred ownership of the property. It now belongs to a charitable foundation, effective immediately. Daniel's face turned pale. Mom, you can't do that. This is our home. I looked at him calmly. No, Daniel. It's mine. You were just living in it. And since I've been your babysitter, I guess it's time you started paying your own way. The guests stared, speechless. Samantha's mouth opened, but no words came out. I picked up my coat, kissed my grandchildren on their foreheads, and said softly, be kind when you grow up. Don't treat the people who love you like servants. Then I walked out the front door, leaving the laughter, the noise, and the disrespect behind me. They thought they had won, but the next scene would show them how wrong they were. The next morning, I woke up in a small rented apartment across town. It wasn't fancy, but it was peaceful. The morning sun filtered through white curtains, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I brewed my own coffee, sat by the window, and looked at the quiet street below. No noise, no tension, no forced smiles. Just silence and peace. Then my phone started ringing. It was Daniel. I let it ring a few times before answering. His voice was panicked. Mom, what did you do? We just got a notice from the bank. The mortgage, the house, everything, it's not in my name anymore. They said it's under a foundation's ownership. Tell me this is some kind of mistake. I spoke calmly. It's no mistake, Daniel. The house and everything in it now belong to a foundation that helps single mothers and elderly women. The transfer was completed weeks ago. Mom, you can't just take everything away from us. He shouted. Where are we supposed to go? How could you do this? I took a deep breath. Daniel, when you called me your babysitter, I realized I had made a mistake too. I raised a son who forgot respect. You and Samantha treated me like I was hired help, not family. So now, you'll have to learn what life is like without help. He went quiet for a long time. I could hear Samantha yelling in the background, demanding to speak to me. Then he said, You're ruining our lives. I closed my eyes. No, Daniel. I'm just stepping out of them. And I ended the call. That afternoon, I visited Mr. Henderson at his office to finalize some last details. He smiled at me when I walked in. You really followed through with it, didn't you? He said. Yes, I replied. I had to. They needed to learn the difference between love and convenience. He nodded. You've done the right thing. You're free now. Free. That word felt powerful. In the weeks that followed, Daniel and Samantha tried to fight the legal transfer, but they had no standing. The property was fully in my name before, and I had every right to donate it. Their friends who had once laughed with them stopped coming around. People started whispering, calling Samantha greedy and heartless for how she treated me. The same people who had laughed at me were now watching them fall apart. One evening, I got another call. It was Daniel again. His voice was quieter this time, tired and broken. Mom, Samantha left. She took the kids and went to her parents. I don't know what to do. I didn't say anything for a moment. Part of me wanted to comfort him, but another part knew he needed this lesson. Daniel, I said softly, you need to learn what family really means. I tried to show you with love, but you didn't understand. Now life will teach you instead." He didn't reply. I could hear him crying on the other end before the call ended. A few months passed. I continued my new life quietly, volunteering at the charity that had received my house. The building was being used to shelter women and children who had nowhere else to go. Seeing their smiles, their gratitude, gave me a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. One day, I was at the shelter when I heard someone calling my name. I turned around and saw Daniel standing there. He looked thinner, older, defeated. His once confident posture was gone. He was holding a small bouquet of flowers, his hands trembling. "Mom," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I nodded and led him to a small bench outside. He sat down beside me, tears already in his eyes. "I was wrong," he said. "About everything. About how I treated you. About how I let Samantha talk to you like that. I don't know why I let it happen. I just wanted peace at home, and I thought keeping quiet was easier. But I see now what I lost." I stayed silent, watching him struggle with his words. He took a deep breath. "When you left, everything fell apart. The house, the money, the family, all of it. I thought you were being cruel, but now I see you were just trying to teach me. You gave me everything, and I gave you disrespect." He looked down, tears hitting his hands. "I'm sorry, Mom, please forgive me." I felt my throat tighten. I had dreamed of this moment, but I never imagined it would look like this. My son sitting on a cold bench. Broken, humbled. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Daniel, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about learning. I forgive you, but you have to rebuild your life differently now. Respect people, value them, and don't ever let pride blind you again." He nodded, then suddenly fell to his knees in front of me. His voice cracked as he said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve how we treated you." I reached out and helped him back up. "You don't need to kneel, Daniel. Just stand up and do better. That's all the apology I need." We sat there quietly for a long time, watching the sunset. For the first time in years, there was no anger between us, only understanding. As he left that day, I watched him walk away. His shoulders no longer heavy with arrogance, but with humility. Later that evening, one of the young mothers at the shelter brought me a cup of tea. She smiled and said, "You're the kindest woman I've ever met. You saved this place." I smiled back. "No, dear. This place saved me." When I went to bed that night, I thought about how life had changed. I had lost my home, my comfort, and my illusions. But in return, I gained peace, self-respect, and a second chance to live for myself. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about walking away and letting the truth reveal itself. And when it finally does, the ones who laughed at you will fall to their knees, not because you punished them, but because they finally see what they destroyed. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "I'm no one's babysitter anymore." Then, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully.